Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today, our guest is Scott Acton. Scott Acton is a successful entrepreneur, third-generation craftsman, and the founder and CEO of Forte Specialty Construction. He attended Disney University, like the generations before him, transformed a 2-employee startup up to a $12 million a year operation in only 2 years. He was recently named U.S. Small Business Administration's Small Business Person of the Year and continues 3 generations of creative execution of the world's most iconic experiential spaces. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, quite the accolades, buddy. Really, I've got some questions teed up here about Disney, and stuff like that. But before we get into it, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Scott? What about your background drives your entrepreneurial spirit, and how does a generational approach play into that?
I wish I knew the answer. I think tenacity and just a passion and a love for what I do. I think I was just in the right place at the right time. My grandfather worked with Walt in the 50s, was a plasterer by trade, Oklahoma boy, and moved to Orange County and was lucky enough to get hired on the plastering crew that kind of formatted and did the Matterhorn and the Pirates of the Caribbean. And so after that, my dad got out of the service, self-taught mechanical animator, really smart guy. And he did the Jaws attraction for Universal, Conan the Barbarian, Dracula's Castle. It was just a ongoing deal. I was a troubled ADHD kid before that was really a thing, and couldn't do an hour in school. So I dropped out in 10th grade and went to work in the shop with a broom at $5 an hour, cleaning the floors, and just I got assigned little projects, fell in love with it. I'm 53 now, so I've been in it for longer than I want to admit.
Yeah, interesting. Tell me a little bit more about the Disney experience then, because that was one thing that really stuck out when I was reading your bio and researching a little bit. What does that mean exactly when you say you attended Disney University?
Yeah, so I'll take it. Everyone else has a college on there, and I'm a high school dropout. But what happened was I started calling the supervisor of the staff shop there, Dave Grego, and I called him every week for about 9 months, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to work for you someday." And he's like, "We're not hiring, kid." Mm-hmm. And it was because my grandfather worked there, my dad worked there. I wanted to, be a part of the magic. And so finally, he gave me an opportunity, and I got on as a, mold maker in the shop. And they posted a sign up. They said, must have a 4-year degree and have worked here 2 years. I'd been there 6 weeks, and I thought, man, that's a position for me. And not being politically savvy at all, I wrote a letter to the president of the park about everything that was wrong with the staff shop and why it was costing them money and how they could do it differently. And so I became the most hated guy in the staff shop, but I did get sponsored into the management training program, which is Disney University, which is a year-long management program. And, Dale Berner at the time was the VP of the park, and Jack Lindquist was the president. And I was in the Disney University, and I wore a suit and tie, and I was literally, kind of a fish out of water. But, we switched it to night shifts and did some things differently in the park. And it was an amazing time. Soon after, my dad calls me and says, "Hey, I've got this project in Las Vegas for Mr. Wynn. Would you come out here and help me build the pirate ships for Treasure Island?" And I'm like, "I'm a ginger. I don't want to live in the desert." And anyway, he talks me into coming out to Las Vegas. And it's supposed to be for an 11-month project. And I've been here 28 years and worked on every casino from Macau to New York, all around the world.
That is very interesting. I've never met anybody who's attended it, especially in the way that you did. So what was it? Maybe could you unpack some details about what it was like at Disney University then? I mean, what are they teaching you? And is there even an equivalent to that in today's?
I have no idea what they call it today, but basically you were in a classroom half day and you were supervising half day, and you got to spend time in all the different departments. So you really got to take in the Disney DNA on experience-driven retail, experience-driven, experiential dining, experiential shows, experiential rides, management styles. You had to come up with your own restaurant concept. You were put with a team of other, young management training people, and we had to present why a concept like this would work and do the financial planning for it. So it was like a little mini Disney MBA, if you will. It was, like I said, it was a short deal, but I've got my little certificate on the wall, and it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds unforgettable for sure. How did that lead then? What has led you today to where you're at right now? And tell us about Forte. Why did you start Forte? Where did that come from?
So I had sold a bit. I was a small businessman of the year in 2006 for an experiential fabrication company still tied to the casinos and the theme parks. I sold that company in 2007, and I started Forte. I took 2 years off during the debacle, the financial debacle, and followed Warren Buffett's advice of when everybody else is running out, go in. And the construction business was in tatters. People's balance sheets were a mess. And I thought that coupling that experiential knowledge and the kind of the Disney side of things, building a construction company from the ground up. So Forte is a general contractor licensed in some 15 states. And we do anything that's experiential. And the biggest part of our business that's exploded now is the luxury residential piece. A lot of these visionary developers like Mr. Wynn have kind of pushed us into an experiential lifestyle, right? So why not wake up in the morning and feel like you're in a Wynn suite? Why not, feel like you're at the Four Seasons or at Disney or wherever, right? So it's really just about all the senses. Like everything, when you go into a restaurant that's done properly, the sound, the lighting, the acoustical, the comfort of the seat, the food's only a small portion of the overall experience. And so when you look at how you could live that way, I don't think there's a lot of people that really get the meaning of that.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think just by you talking about it, I hope people kind of take a little pause the next time they're at a place like that and unpack it a little bit, because I think we just take those things for granted, especially in Las Vegas. You go and expect it, right?
Yeah, especially for brands like that. But you walk into someone's office, and I've been fortunate enough to work for someone like that for 20 plus years, and so it's really kind of the black ops of construction and execution. People say, well, it's going to take me 2 years to build that home. We've done $15 million luxury homes in 12 months or less, right? Because we're trained differently, and the execution's different. We build like a commercial builder. And so really for a lot of these guys, we're selling time as opposed to construction. It's really interesting that, a lot of people have money, a lot of people have ideas, but at the end of the day, the big commodity is time.
Yeah. And you never get that back, right?
No. And then you walk into a visionary's office like that. I wonder why does everyone have a different chair? Well, before they'll put a chair in a restaurant or anywhere, they'll have the office people switch it around and use it. So when you walk in there, it looks like an eclectic chair, warehouse, right?
Yeah.
But to really understand how your customers are going to feel and how they're going to experience a space that way, like that kind of thoughtfulness and that kind of attention to detail is what it takes to reach a level that they've reached.
Yeah, there's a lot of so this podcast is there's a lot of different entrepreneurs that listen to it, a lot of business owners, and one of the things I like to ask other business owners is maybe if you could tell us what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned after starting your own companies, if there's just a few that you could pick out.
Don't ever give up. That's the biggest lesson. Schultz, right, for Starbucks. 252 no's before he got funding for Starbucks. So if you take any kind of temporary defeat as failure, don't even start. Because you're going to fail, you're going to scratch your nose, you're going to fall on your face, you're going to be embarrassed, you're going to cry, you're going to lose money, you're going to, all the things that are going to happen, you're going to experience them in small business. It's not easy. It's not for everyone. And if you don't have thick skin, I would say don't even try it, and especially the love for it. I think you've got to have a real love for it. It's not just about money. If you're doing it for money, you're also doing it for the wrong reasons, in my opinion. I think you really got to have a fire and a passion for doing what you do.
Yeah, I agree. Otherwise, you'll burn out. Exactly. And those failures, that for you to be able to swallow those failure pills, I think is really difficult. If it's just purely money, there's no passion involved.
No, because I've taken some brutal hits along the way and made some galactic mistakes, and was able to somehow, emotionally dig myself out of it, get back on the horse and go again. And, the company that I sold in '07, I'm now billing monthly what I did annually there. Like, this company is going to be over 100 million this year. So it's just crazy that if you keep going and you've got a sound business model and you do what you say you're going to do, and you make sure you pick the right clients too. Like, they're not all right. It's an interesting recipe, but I've had the joys of all the way on the top and all the way on the bottom. And the gift of desperation is a gift. It's good to get kicked in the nuts.
Yeah. Well, what I like to do, I mean, honestly, when I wake up, I just, if you're an entrepreneur, you wake up and you're hungry every day, right? I mean, you're always chasing the next big thing. It's a totally different circumstance than being an employee. Tell us about one thing you touched on just a little bit ago. There was not picking the right clients. How do you know to pick them? Do you have a system where you can just feel out the wrong clients and how to avoid them?
I don't have a system for it, but I think it's just sniffing them out and telling them that up front. I mean, I've got a good sniffer, if you will, for people that are going to treat you badly. And I've had enough clients treat us like dog shit for a multitude of reasons. But people who have to behave that way, I'm not inspired to work for. And so if and I ask them that up front, like, we just have a no assholes policy. Like, if you're gonna behave in a certain way, then we're just not a fit. We don't need practice anymore. We're grateful. We're blessed with an amazing backlog and some clients that really appreciate what we do. And having that appreciation along with the work to do means something. And people that get that will get that.
Mm-hmm. How do you tell people no? I mean, directly. Do you just say, I just don't think we're a good fit?
I say it just like that. If you're going to be an asshole, I'm not going to work for you.
Okay. You're very straightforward. I don't mind that at all. I think that's good. I think I need to pick up on that. Sometimes I just give them a much higher fee that I know they won't go for. I think the funny part about it is watching their reaction to that. That's my test, is see what they do. Right. So I had a big, tech guy, Scott McNeely, he did Sun Microsystems. He looked at me in the face and said, "What's your biggest concern about this project?" And I said, "You're a loose cannon." And he laughed and he goes like, "You're my guy. You're my builder." That's hilarious. So if you've had those interactions, then do those clients, does it somehow maybe you wouldn't have worked with them in the end, but if you kind of get that out of the way, is that a form of an icebreaker that you found that works for you?
Absolutely. And it's good to go to have a meal with them as soon as possible, because how they treat the wait staff is critical. It's like dating, you know what I mean? You could figure a lot of stuff out. Like, if you see that person is beneath you, then I don't want to work with you. Because no matter what your position in the world is, whether you got $1 billion, you got 10 cents in your pocket, right? We're all humans, and we're all going to be on that spectrum at different levels at different times in our life. Nobody's immune to it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Let's switch things up a little bit and tell us about, since you're in the construction industry, and I'm sure you've been hearing it just like we have too, and maybe you're looking forward to it or not, but like, as we move towards bleeding edge technologies like 3D printing and drones or automated artificial intelligence, being these robots maybe being able to start building our buildings or doing the crafty things for us, are there any kind of do you have your eye on any of those technologies, and do you see us actually making that move in the future? Are there any that you are employing currently to make your construction projects happen?
Absolutely. So we have the largest 3D printer in Nevada. And so we have, from CNC to water jet cutting to plasma machines. We are a technology company that happens to do construction, right? And so the modeling, the virtual walkthroughs, the renderings, the experience before you spend the dollars on it to know that it's what you want. I mean, those are all critical elements to success. It's how you set it up, and how the work you do up front is really going to be, it's going to minimize the adversarial nature of the process. People are uncertain, people are scared of it. So the more you can get them comfortable on the front side, the better your chances are of success.
How is that technology can you give us an example of, if we would not have had this technology, it could be a 3D printer or whatever, CNC, where there's something that you just maybe could not have made? Because a lot of people, I think craftspeople, artisans, get a little bit nervous about it taking their craft away. When in my opinion, it's just another tool as a human that you can use to master your craft.
Yeah. Well, I think it's what you believe, right? So it's the law of compensation. All things are equal. For whatever's taken away is added somewhere else, right? So that I think is a fundamental belief of mine, of that it just makes it so you can do more, you can create more experiences, right? And so the 3D printer for the universal work we did, we're able to print tooling now, which takes 2 steps out of the process, which makes projects more affordable, which enhances the experience overall for the kids, right? And so at the end of the day, if you're not doing this to get goosebumps when the kids run into the new Harry Potter land, then you're probably in the wrong business.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, if you, there are other people, a lot of, one of the things is you mentioned is that you don't have this 4-year degree, 5-year bachelor's, PhD, whatever on your resume, but you're clearly a successful person. You're very A to B's from what I can tell, and you get things done. Do you have any advice for people listening that maybe don't want to go a traditional path of school and would like to do something equivalent to you? It doesn't have to be the same kind of business, but just, do you still see a path for young people moving ahead to where they can bypass the 4-year degree? Like, we don't have to do that. I'm a big fan of Mike Rowe. Maybe you are too. And that whole, we need tradespeople. We need more people getting into the industry.
Yeah, I think that it's absolutely possible. I think that your brain is the most creative from like 14 to 24, right? And from there it's down. So if you're going to sit in a classroom memorizing bullshit you're never going to use, like how much of a good use of time is that? Then real practical experience. I'd get out instead of doing the college was, go out and work 10 different industries and figure it out early what you want. That university is always going to be there. You can go get your master's at night. You can go get it. If that's that important, you hang that piece of paper on the wall, it's always going to be there. But really digging into what you believe and what you feel from your core, that little germination period, if you will, is on fire when you're younger.
Yeah. And, one of the best pieces of advice I've heard from other people too is that you should try your passion before 40, at least once, because then you have time. If you financially, if you go bankrupt or a big, like, you still have time to recover and maybe get a retirement later on. But while you're young, not only with it being extra creative and having more energy, I think that's the time to do it. One thing we probably can't get away from talking about is COVID. How have you guys been handling COVID since everything hit this year? Have you guys changed the way you're doing business? Are you guys seeing increased revenue, lowered revenue, all that kind of stuff? Drastically increased revenue.
COVID's allowed people to pick their place where they want to live. And I think that people have looked at their mortality. And so with the liquidity that's happening in the market is these, of course, our boomers are retiring 10,000 a day, right? So 90% of their net worth is tied up in their little businesses. So now they're finally, being able to say, okay, honey, build the house you want, live where you want, do what you want. And so we're seeing just a boom in people that are building these luxurious homes.
How about the wildfires? Did you guys have any effect?
So that's funny. Funny you should say that. I was on Channel 7 News in LA about we build out of steel, like non-combustible construction. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you not take a look at that and not build out of kindling when you're in the path of a fire? Yep. Right. So if you're in the backwoods of Malibu or in Napa, in those areas, like, it's really critical to think smart about your building materials. There's a lot of materials out there that are non-combustible that at least will give you a 3-hour window. And if you have 3-hour firewall, the fire will pass you in most times, an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you'll survive it. I agree. Are you guys having to see, out here in Boulder County and in Western Colorado, one of the things we're having to do is we'll have to do like wildfire mitigation around a new site. And that's mandated. And some people do it voluntarily, but are you guys doing anything besides building with steel? Are there any other approaches you guys are taking?
Well, we look at that and of course, to make that a part of our protocol, but in some, it's not mandatory in a lot of areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's kind of wrap things up here. One of the last questions I'd like to ask everybody is, knowing what you know now, and if you could go back in time and give your former self advice, what would you tell yourself before starting your companies?
What I heard it in a new book. Fear doesn't keep you alive. Fear keeps you from living. And I probably would have started earlier, gone harder, and shot further up, because the first one I said I hit, And I'm like, man, I should have added a couple zeros to that one. So don't be afraid to think really big. The universe is abundant, and it's there's no limit to what's possible.
Yeah, I really like your attitude. I like how straightforward you are. And I agree, Scott. I wish I would have done the same thing. It's like investing. I'm looking at my, every once in a while, glance at my portfolio, and I'm like, man, I should just put more money in. Those were good decisions, and now the return is higher, right? It's hindsight every time. But well, this is fantastic. If people are in the Las Vegas area, or if they would like to, they're looking to create an experiential, an awesome experience with whatever architecture they're doing, and they want to reach out to you, Scott, how can people find and how can they follow you? ForteDesignBuild.com or Detail Minded on Instagram, and my office, whatever. Call me, text me, email me, whatever you like. Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show today, Scott. This is great. Thank you. Great meeting you.